Assalamu alaikum. First, I'll start off with a brief prayer we call Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. That is the Fatiha. That's the opening prayer for Muslims. And my name is Rasul Nasir. I am the inspiration or the visionary behind what we now call THS, which is the acronym for True Human Services. I became a Muslim in the year 1975. The 2 years prior to that, in 73, I was accepted into Adelphi University for writing a composition on the life of Malcolm X. It got me a 4-year degree, never knowing that I would end up being a Muslim. So the 2 years before 75, 73, and 74, I used to see the FOI leaving campus on Sunday afternoon to travel into Harlem. I began to ask them questions and had conversations. And they one day invited me to join them or to travel with them into the city. I said, of course, because prior to that I would listen to Minister Louis Farrakhan on WBLS radio every Sunday at 1 o'clock. So I said to the brothers, the FOI on the campus of Adelphi, that sure, I want to go see him face to face. So we did that, and that began my journey into being a Muslim. There's more to that story, but that's another time. In the year 2006, I wrote this book called Secure Your Life. I wrote this book because I wanted to share my experiences as a FOI with the present community under the leadership of Imam W.D. Muhammad and the new people coming in, so that they would learn something of what I have learned about security and securing community life. So from that point on, when the book was released, there was an upcoming convention. I gave a copy one day to his brother, Elijah Muhammad II. And he was known throughout the Nation of Islam days and the history of the FOI as the second man in charge of the FOI under Raymond Sharif. But I know different. As far as I'm concerned, he was the man on top, right next to his brother and right under his father. So, when he took the book, he came back to me before that convention was over, gave it to his brother, and he said that his brother, who was the Imam, known as W.D. Muhammad, said for me to continue to work on it. So I did just that. I continued to work on this idea of securing Muslim community and rebuilding the image and the disciplines of what was the FOI into something new that the Imam wanted. And from that moment on, from that day on, it's been in my mind and in my heart to make that happen. So I began to talk with others throughout the community of Imam Muhammad, have meetings, made an attempt to join a group that was trying to do the same thing, and it didn't really go that far. So I said, well, you know, when that got to a certain point, I said, well, I'm gonna have to take another route to make this happen. And a few years later, the man passed on. And so that told me, said, well, Rasul, you're gonna have to wait and see, because the community was dividing off now. If you know, the discipline had actually, the discipline of the FOI had actually begun to go down once the imam made changes. And now after he's gone, I said, well, we really got to see what's going on now and which direction the community is going to go in. So having a little revival back in 2013, maybe 14, I was convinced that in the direction in which the community would be going. That means there would be many organizations, there would be many leaders throughout the country. And I believe the Imam has said that's what he wanted. So, you know, the FOI was known for protecting the Imam and as well as the ministers. And the facilities that we had, which was known as the temples or the mosques, now known as masjids. So noticing many things, many changes, and new people coming in who had no knowledge of any of that great history, of the discipline that we had, I said, well, I'm gonna sit back and watch. And shortly after that, it came to me, you know, and I'm not spooky, I'm a security man. I realized how Allah works. And one of the ways He works is through people. And when people begin to come at you and say this and say that to inspire you to make something happen in that direction, that's Allah talking to you. And it's happened several times for me through the most recent years. So I got back on board. And we recently decided to have conference calls. Those of us who were talking together about rebuilding this image and this discipline. So every Sunday morning we've been meeting via conference calls for the last half a year or something like that, and trying to organize and bring this thing to a point where you could be in agreement and wanting to be a part of what we plan for the future. So True Human Services is it. Now, how did we come about with that name? I was watching on YouTube, and I say to you, if you can't afford to buy the Imam's tapes, then go on YouTube. Put in his name in the browser, you'll see a whole bunch of videos, interviews with the Imam, lectures. And that's a good way to be inspired. And in that vein, in that idea, that I can actually say that brother, who we call Imam W.D. Muhammad, is the person who most inspired me in my Muslim life. Yes. Because, you know, I had the opportunity to work side by side with him, never really having a conversation because I was working, but he, I considered a blessing that I was able to walk side by side or sit right across from him and make sure everything was cool. You know, because many of us who did that kind of service for the Imam, we had the thought that we would protect him as well as the Secret Service protects the United States President, Mr. POTUS, and those associated with him. So we gave him that security as well as his family. And because the world now in 2017, I feel it's very incumbent upon us to come back together and make our presence known in community life as the Imam wanted. You know, he wanted us to be not just involved in the masjids or in our local groups, but also in outside community lives, the projects, the rural areas, the urban areas, all over. Wherever people existed, he wanted us to be involved in some capacity, in some way, give service. One of the things that I learned as a FOI, and I want to share that because it gave me the confidence to be able to speak to anybody, any place, anytime, along with having an education, from Adelphi University in communications. But, selling those Muhammad Speaks on the street did something for me. It gave me the bold confidence of approaching a stranger and getting his money, and bringing that money back to the masjid. But at the same time, offering that person the opportunity, because many times I do remember people coming that I would talk to on the college campus as well as out on the street about what we were doing, about the language of Elijah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then the Imam. So, that's an experience we want to bring to our young people who join THS. We're going to teach them how to sell, push the Muslim Journal, secure community events. We have several organizations now since the passing of the Imam, and those events have to be secure in the best way, in the highest fashion, because there are a lot of bad people in this world, and we want to make sure our people have the best events and most secure events. So that means not just coming and standing around, but the groups, those who want to do that kind of work in THS as volunteers, as employees, then training is involved, which means you have to know certain things. You have to know how to physically use one of these things here if you have to. Somebody may come up to the door, start swinging a big knife or swing a couple of chairs, or just losing his mind, and you may be there by yourself. So you have to know how to use this. This is known as a collapsible baton. And normally, when I whip it out like that, if I do it real hard, I'm in my office now, it'll stay there, and you won't be able to push it in. So you'll have this. This is iron, and you'll know how to use it. Whip it out as fast as you whip out a couple $100 bills out of your pocket. So, and then you'll have to know certain people in the team will know how to use these things. They're called handcuffs. They're for people who are physically uncontrollable. So we'll have to cuff them. You'll have to know how to do that as fast as you pull out another $100. So, and I know, that's a joke, but this ain't no joke. This is an air gun. We train with this. You'll have to know how to see the leaves move. That means the air simulates the real bullet. So you'll have to learn how to deal with this. And let me say now, on the 1st of April, I'll be at Masjidullah in Philly, and THS will have its first national meeting. That's at 10 o'clock in the morning. So it's close to FOI time. In other words, FOI time was like earlier than that, maybe I think it was 8 o'clock in the morning, at least in the New York area. So we slowly bringing that back. So look forward, you brothers and sisters who want to be a part of this, to get up, to stay up after Fajr, and then begin to train and work so that you can be more secure in what you're doing with securing the community in these events for our different organizations. And we're not just talking these days as we did it in the FOI and the MGT. They have a saying, "Fi sabilillah." No, not all the time. Fi sabilillah. Allah wants you to come home with some kind of income also. So we are in dialogue with the business people in our association to back this effort. and so that when we need to get paid, we can get paid. But it's on both sides. So you have to at times be available to give freely of your time because you love the work and what your community is doing, and other times it'll be required that they get paid. We've done work. Me, and others have done work where we never got paid. But here in the year 2017, with all the certification that's required in each state, you got to put out money to become certified just to be a small time security guard for a small time company or either a big company. And my thing is, if you're going to get that certification, then get paid for it, because you're putting your credentials up as well as your life up to secure people. So True Human Services is going to be on both sides, and of security as well as service. So there'll be times when you're just giving of your time as a member of the community. And with the training that we're going to offer, our members will have to read and study and be tested. For each state, you have to be tested as a security guard. Here in New York, you have to be tested on one test, and then there's another test if you want to carry a firearm in the state of New York. So you have to pass those tests to be recognized as an official, and you get an ID card and all that stuff. Even though if you go to Utah, you can get a gun license and carry it all over America except for 3 states. But for us, we're not concerned with all that right now. We're concerned with organizing and making sure our members are well trained and educated. So here's another book that I require that all the members of THS have in their library. Study it and know it. And I've learned a lot. I learned of how the Prophet Sahabas used military warfare tactics to win their battles. And many of you don't know that there were spies that were sent out by the Prophet to gather information and bring it back to him so he can make a choice over a matter. And there's other battlefield tactics that he used that's in this book. And there's things that in the composition of this book that you can use, that we can use in developing our security team and making sure it was the best. He set the pace. The Prophet set the pace for military battles. And even the United States Army, in their war college, they study this man's tactics. They do it in Russia, they do it in China, and many other countries. So we're going to do the same thing here in THS. You're going to come to a meeting one day and then there'll be a classroom set up. And you have to pull out your notebooks or your recorders or whichever and study and listen and ask questions. So buy this book. I hope that camera is zooming in on it, because that's it for you. You got to have this. This one you can get on probably Amazon. If not, you make contact with me and we'll make sure we get the book to you. Now, this book, which I wrote, you have to get this directly from me. All right? And here's another book that I want you to read, The Art of War. Many of the men probably heard of it, and there's tactics in here that you need to study and know. Never know what kind of situation you're going to be in life. There are wise philosophical sayings in this book that written by Sun Tzu. And many of the war colleges in those countries and these strong military operations, they study these tactics. All right, so going to one more book, which is the most recent book, the Sharia, Wa Minhaja. And the brother who wrote this book, his name is Imam Yahya Shabazz, and he spent a good amount of time in gathering this information. The Imam also had a portion involved in this book, and it's a wise book, especially up to date, because a lot of the immigrants are coming from their homelands, bringing their versions of the Sharia law. Well, this brother, using the wisdom and the tafsirs and the language of the Imam W.D. Muhammad, to formulate the contents of this book, which gives us a strong and better presentation than what we have been known to hear from the immigrant world. So this book is good for all those, especially those Muslims, but strongly required for members in THS to have. So get your ducats together, because you're gonna, it's just not saying you belong to something, but you got to really be a part of it by knowing physically what to do and having the mind power to handle different situations. We had an image. I remember the last time we walked the Imam off the stage, and I think it was at one of the conventions, and I was on the perimeter as the Imam walked off the stage, and behind me were a group of women who worked at this place as in the catering hall, and I overheard one of them say, "Wow, they look just like the brothers in the Malcolm X movie." And this is not long ago, just a couple of years ago. And so I turned and said, "Some are." And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Yes." And I kept it moving. And there's another situation. We buried, I was part of the security detail for Betty Shabazz. And that happened at the service of Janazah was up at the Masjid 91st Street, 96th Street in Manhattan. And as we rolled out, the car entourage, across from us is a project. So we had to travel around and make that right turn. And the people were lined up as we rolled out. And they started clapping. Some of us were on foot, moving up, walking fast or running fast besides the entourage. And they just started clapping. So we had a name in the community. We had a name and respect from the people in the community. And that has to come back. I believe many of the situations where young people are doing things is because we, as FOI of yesterday, have disappeared. We didn't pass down the knowledge that we were given. Even today, some brothers, you come to the masjid, you go there for Jummah, and then even in the Quran it says you're supposed to wear your best dress for Jummah. And we knew that as FOI before we even went to a Jummah. Anytime you go to the masjid, you come with your suit and tie. Even if you had to do blue-collar dirty work before it was time to attend the masjid or the temple,